Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna East, and you are at our Regional Attendance and Reengagement Project training. Thank you all for joining me today. We are spotlighting Wahilut's Indian Schools program today, too. They'll be coming on right after our introductions to share what they're doing at their school. And you are not going to move for me. All right, let's try this again. Hold on a second. I was doing this last time. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. Capital Region ESD 113 acknowledges that our region is on land forcibly removed from the Nisqually, Cowlitz, Puget Sound Salish, Quinault, Shoalwater, Chehalis, and Squaxin Island people. And probably many more tribes that their names have been lost over the years. If you would like to put in chat the lands you are currently on, please honor, acknowledge those lands in the chat for me. Awesome. All right, everyone. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to do introduction exercises, surprise, surprise, with a Y in it. We're going to be spotlighting Wahilut School and their program that they've designed, which is awesome. We're going to be talking about data again. I know you guys are so excited. We're going to be talking a lot about data this year, since this whole project is about adding real-time attendance data to a team that's looking at it and using it for our supports. We're going to be talking a little bit about goal setting for your team, and we're going to start thinking about those strategies for a slump that we always know is coming, which the next one is right after winter break. All right, next slide, please. All right, so for today's breakout rooms, you're going to be sharing with a few people, again, your name and your school, as we're getting to know each other. This team is about peer learning, and knowing who we're working with is really important. After you share your name, school, if you could share how your school is communicating with your staff about why attendance matters and what they can do to help, I think was a really good thing to make sure that we're making sure we're communicating that why out, not only to our staff and our students, I mean, our students and our families, but to our staff as well. All right, who's in charge of putting breakout rooms today? Woohoo! All right, we'll see you guys back soon. No? Almost. Oh, good. Somebody put even in the chat too. You guys are getting really good. If you guys haven't met my two Cassandras, they're amazing. I really appreciate their help on these. Hi, everyone. I hope you got some of you were just coming in and you got swept off to a room. So I hope you were able to meet everybody in our rooms. Thank you for joining us today. All right, next slide, Cassandra. All right, and Amber, can't see you right now, so hopefully when you start talking, you're going to move up into my screen. Amber, so. Awesome, there you are. Amber is from Wahilut, and she's also the school nurse there. She does a lot of double duty on stuff over there, but I had the pleasure of working with Amber this summer a little bit and going out and seeing her program. And I said, gosh, could you please present to our group on the program that you've set up there? So Amber, if you would take it away, thank you very much for presenting for us today.
Sure. So I'm a little hoarse. I apologize. I've been sick. I think everyone has been sick recently. So I am primarily the school nurse. I do other things here as well. Attendance is one of the big ones. If you could go to the next slide. We started working on setting up our team in June of this year, so the last school year. And it does consist of all these people. We have our principal, our vice principal. It was super important for the counselor to be involved. We have our state compliance liaison, who's the whiz with all the numbers. There's me, because when COVID was around, I called everybody who was ill to figure out why they were absent, if they were ill or not. We've also included our behavioral specialist, one of our teachers. We hired a part-time community liaison from one of our retired teachers to help us with home visits and outreach with particularly difficult to reach families. So that's kind of the team that our school has put together. So if you want to go to the next slide. So part of our tier 1 interventions that are school-wide, we sent flyers home at the beginning of the year. And again, with the end of the quarter about attendance. We are always calling when they're absent to figure out why they're calling. If it's not the teachers who are first line, it's our bus drivers who are calling to figure out what's going on. We've also started Peer Connections, which is our 8th graders coming down once a week and working with our kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders to help mentor them, to help foster, just foster a sense of community so that they want to be here. We do have attendance incentives that we are giving out to students who are on our caseload that have chronic absenteeism issues. They do get rewards, whether that be a treat, because Talkies are in. We all know everyone loves Talkies. Or to play outside. Some of them want to come and draw a picture with their favorite staff member. Whatever incentive that is catered to them is going to help them. Now, all of our students get free breakfast and lunch. Everybody does. That's unanimous. We're starting up monthly assemblies and pizza with the principals to recognize good and improved attendance. And it's super important that all of our kids have access to the tech that they need because of the population that we do serve. A lot of them do not have that at home. So we make sure they have it here to succeed. Over the summer, I created a dashboard just so that we could, all the data that we'd accumulated, we could analyze it and kind of see what we're dealing with. So the top graph shows us our monthly attendance by grade. So we can try to isolate if there's a certain grade that's having an issue or if it's school-wide. And you can see September and October there. We can tell who had the most absenteeism in that class. Now, the one below has overall attendance from last year and this year so that we can see if there's been any improvement. I was excited to see that October has improved from last year, and it also improved from September of this year. Next slide. I created all this in Google Sheets so that it can be shared with everyone on our attendance team. It works a little bit better if you're explaining something and there's an example or a visual. So another part of our dashboard is our total school tiers. So these are the students that we have in each tier group for this year. And you can see that our tier 3 group has shrunk and our tier 1 group has grown from September to October. I also have a graph over here for outreach. Every time we call home, go to the house, I want to document that if we're having successful or unsuccessful outreach, so that when I tell my principal we're calling home, we're making contact, I can pull up this graph and show him exactly how much contact we're making. Next slide. So this is our caseload. We have students that we pull for that have chronic absenteeism that we're doing interventions with. And these are the tiers for October that those kids place in. This is not the whole school. These are just the kids that we are following. And you can see a good chunk of them are tier 3. And I'm hoping to shrink that. So our first line of defense is that each classroom has a Google Doc that they're documenting in for absences. I created one for each classroom, K through 8. And if the students are missing 2 to 3 days, I want the teachers calling home to find out what's going on, because we know teachers have the closest relationship with those students. They see them every day. We want them calling home. And then over here on the side, it says contact home. There's a little spot you can right click in there. And I've asked them to put the date and if they left a voicemail, if they talked to somebody and what was said. Now, our secretary also does that. If mom calls and says there's a funeral, we're going to be gone 3 days, the secretary will go in and she'll type in a note with the kid's name so the teacher knows. Me as a school nurse, if I get called saying Johnny has COVID, he's not going to be in, I'm going to go into that classroom sheet and I'm going to type it in so the teacher's not calling to bug this family. Now, there's also a box in here that if this, like, let's say Anne, she has had a lot of absences, so our attendance team is going to pick her up on our caseload. we check that box, and that lets the teachers know they don't have to call anymore because someone on our team has been assigned to this student and they're going to be making the contact from here on out. Next slide. So this is our shared document with our attendance team. Anybody that is in our caseload, like Anne Frank was, all of her information would be typed in here. And it's hard for me to see. And we put comments in. So anytime somebody makes contact with that student, they're going to be documenting it in here. And we also assign staff members from our team. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's the counselor. It depends on whoever has a good rapport. And we discuss this between ourselves. And let's say that I have Anne and Anne doesn't like me. It doesn't work. So then I would ask the counselor, do you have a good rapport with Anne because it's not working? And we would switch staff members to do interventions with Anne. Next slide, please. So this is the responsibilities of the attendance team. Once you are assigned a student, the counselor would, or whoever, would have to speak to Anne for 1 20-minute conversation per week. And that's to build a good relationship with her. After that, we have at least 2 check-ins. That can be a high five, just looking at them, saying, we're good, we're glad you're here. And then also, whoever's assigned has to monitor that attendance. They need to be in the computer, finding out when Anne is absent and when Anne is not absent. That way that they can figure out what goal she needs to reach, what incentive we can give her that she's gonna actually wanna be here for. And also to make contact with that family when she's not here to figure out why. Next slide, please. So, and these are our results. And you can see that in September, tier 3, we had 53 students. October, we were down to 48. In tier 1, which is where we want everyone to be, in September, we were at 26. And in October, we were at 49. So what we are doing, we are noticing improvement. Not a lot, but a little bit. And every little bit we can take, I'm going to take. So, and that's the gist of our whole program. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much, Amber. There's a couple of things I just wanted to note. Amber is one of the school districts that has the grant for this. And in that grant, she incentivized her teachers and staff to participate by giving them a stipend. So when they set up this program and they made sure that it was an incentive for the teachers to participate as well, which I really appreciated. And Amber, when I saw her in one of our groups for one of the trainings, she's like, yeah, I'm not seeing much. And I'm like, but you're seeing a difference. That's amazing. So I love how when we start doing this work, that those little things that you're starting to see the curve go the other way. It's a huge, huge difference. All right. So Amber has her information at the end of our presentation. If you'd like to email Amber about her program or how she got started with that, please feel free to outreach to her because we want to learn from each other. And when something works, we want to share that with each other. All right. Okay, so we're going to be talking about data. I know you guys are going to be talking about data a lot. So when we get into that system, I know most of you have already been pulling the student level report. So I gave those to you last month where you could pull and see who is missing all that school. But as we move as a team and we want to start, stop, if the kids are jumping at the river up above and we're just rescuing them out of the river, one of us is going to have to go up there and actually find out why they're jumping in the river at the first point. So this is what we can do with data. So I think almost every school that I have has Skyward. If you have cumulative as your system, would you please put that in the chat? Because one of my 2 Cassandras is going to document that for me because your system is a little different now. And so I just need to know that. So if you could put that into the chat with your school name, I need to make sure that I have something slightly set up for you. If any of you have homeroom, that's an add-on that your school would have bought, and it's really amazing at an early warning system platform. If your district happens to have homeroom, could you also document that in the chat with your school name for me, or district name, so I can make sure that I know who has what for platforms, because this is going to be really important. I'm going to be actually getting a training with the state level on how to bring in your attendance secretaries or whoever is pulling that data for you, where they know exactly what we're asking of them. So when we start moving from the student level, we go to the aggregate data. We're going to be reviewing this in a variety of different ways to start going upriver and finding out why these students are jumping in the river for the first place. So we need to get that data, and we want to see who's missing over 10%. We know from Attendance Works and the training that we're doing that chronic absenteeism is over that 10% for the year. And then we want to start moving it around in finding out by grade level, by race and ethnicity, by SPED or 504, maybe by reduced lunch, migrant status, and most of you know my boss is the director of nursing for the ESD. She would think that maybe you want to go in there and look at it from something like kids that have asthma, a common health trend, to see is there something in one of these areas. Once we get the data in a system where we can get that data routinely placed in that manner, you're going to be able to start to compare that data by last school year. We want to make sure that you're also pulling the data on a regular basis. If you're pulling this data once a month, you are way behind the time by the time you get this data. I'm going to say this data should be pulled probably once a week. So your team might not be meeting once a week, but if somebody's getting this data once a week, they can start to set up with the teams how fast we're seeing this data change and where we need to put out a fire, because a fire is happening. And if we're waiting for once a month to go look at it, that's a long time to wait for this kind of data. Now, this data is different than truancy data, okay? Next slide, please. Truancy data only looks at unexcused absences, okay, for the most part. There is a thing in the law that we're supposed to look at a chronic absenteeism, which is both excused and unexcused absences. For us to calculate what percentage of the school year they've missed, that is the total number of absences divided by the possible day of the year that we're in. If we've only been in school for 30 days, then you're dividing it by 30 days, not 180 days, okay? That's how we're getting the rate of if they're chronically absent. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure. I had a couple questions about this earlier, so I just want to make sure we all are on the same page of what data we're pulling. So chronic absenteeism is also different than an average daily attendance. So some of you people can pull a report and it has the average daily. That's not going to get you the answers that you want. The average daily reflects the average number of students in a given day. When we look at chronic absenteeism, it shows the numbers of the kids that have missed over 10%. That's what we're looking at. So just know that other report can be a little misleading for using for your teams. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we can get the chronic absentee data, and we want to start comparing it. Here's a little chart that Allison Fritz from, I think she's ESD 101. She's put together a couple of these slides for me. She's really organized. So she's put in here that we want to start looking at which grade levels have the highest and the lowest rate of absenteeism, because that's someplace that we might need to go look and find out what fire is going on there. Which student groups have the highest and lowest rates of absences when we started to divide them between those different groups? Are there certain days of the week or class periods or times where absences are higher, like the day after Halloween. Guess what? That's a very common day for a lot of kids to be missing. How does this data compare to previous years? Which groups are doing better or doing worse is something we can start to track throughout the year. And once we have this, what teams in your building are already working with this group of students? So if you've noticed, gosh, students with IEPs and 504s have one of the highest or lowest rate, I'm going to go talk to them because there's something going on, or they might be doing something really well. And I want to learn from them as a team, obviously. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the pyramid, and what Amber didn't show you is she actually had this pyramid filled out, which I really liked. So she went in there, she grabbed that data, and she put how many were in, how many numbers she had in all these categories. So she could see really quickly who was in that tier 3, who was in that tier 2. So you don't have to use this by listing out all your interventions, but it is a good way to just really quickly look at where you're at. Maybe this could be for each grade level or the different groups you're looking at. And then you could have common interventions that you might have had at each of those levels. But I just liked when I went and looked at her book that she had this filled out. Next slide, please. And there is links to all these when you get my PowerPoint that you guys can grab these. Okay, as a system and as a team, we're using Attendance Works, very expensive system. The state has bought for us to learn this stuff this year. They happen to have a tool, the DAT, that's a district level tool, or the SAT, which is the student attendance, and it's going to help you get it into those guidelines of the different grades and stuff like that. From what I understand, this is not easy for the first time to do it, but once you've set it up, it goes much quicker. I just got done with a meeting with OSPI, and we're going to try to find a training for our whole state to look at all this at the same time. So you could invite, like, again, that attendance secretary or whoever's pulling this data for your team to make sure they're completely trained on how to use all these tools. Because if we're only using Skyward, you can't get all the information off of Skyward. You have to do something else to get all these different categories that you want, especially grade. So just know, if you've looked at the data and you're like, Deanna, I have no idea how they're getting these things, this is how they're doing it. So I promise you that training is coming. So just know that we're working on this as a whole state to make sure that you can have the same data. You all will have the same data sitting in front of you. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so once we have the data, why we want the data, where we're going with the data is to do informed interventions. That's the whole point. We want to get less kids in that tier 3 back down to tier 2 and tier 1 where we need them to be. Next slide, please. So once we have that data, we're seeing trends, we're seeing where we want to go start investigating. Here's another one of those wonderful spreadsheets by Allison. And so they're going to help us find a way to start understanding what we're looking for, what the reasons are for that chronic absenteeism trend that we're seeing. So if we're seeing a trend, and let's pretend it's IEP students. So we noticed that it's very high for IEP students. So we went and talked to the IEP instructors, case managers, and we went, hey, we're noticing this trend. And we got some information from them. Is that where we stop? What do you guys think? Is that where we would stop in our investigation of why students with a IEP are not coming to school? I'm hoping you're all shaking your head no, because I can only see a few of you. We would start talking to the students and the parents of students. We need student voice, parent voice, to have a system that actually would have information. You want to know the experts at this? It would be the student that has the IEP and their parents. Those are the people that have the expert level information that we're looking for as a school. I just got back from the Becca conference. If you guys didn't get to go, it was amazing. Voice Matters, Voice Circles was just published. It's on OSPI's website, and it's a system for getting student data. And so I'm super excited to possibly work with any of the schools that are thinking about doing this system. I think for my schools, because I have several of you on here, that you do not get to keep your kids past 8th grade. This would be a perfect way for us to go into 9th grade and get this information from our 9th grade students about what did we prepare you well for going to high school, and what did we not prepare you for. So this would be an amazing way for us to go and collect that student voice at the 9th grade level. If any of you are planning on doing one of these, I want to be invited. This is an amazing report that just came out. Next slide, please. Okay, so once we've identified those interventions, we've collected, because part of that process that collecting that student voice is synthesizing it afterwards. This is what we heard. This is the common theme that we heard. Now we can maybe do an intervention. So maybe we even ask the kids, what would have helped? I mean, it's amazing when you start talking to kids, they're really smart. And so sometimes they'll give you the answer right there. I think you should have more attendance contests because I like contests. Whatever the answer would be, we're going to start to look at those of how this barrier might be there and what's the existing intervention. We're going to put the new intervention in place, and then we're going to track, see if it worked. If it didn't work, we're going to try a new plan. I worked with kids for a long time, McKinney-Vento students. We made a plan. That plan didn't work. We just made another plan. So I say that often if you haven't heard that already in my spiel. Go ahead, next slide, please. Okay, so hopefully, I know not all of you have gotten the team together. So this grant is expecting that you are going to put together a team that is looking at real-time attendance data to start informing these supports. So as a team, if you haven't formed that team yet, know that this is really important. If you have no leader in this, case management is not going to solve this problem. Amber's shaking her head at me. She's like, yeah, case management is not going to solve it. If you are not organized and have a system, it is not going to change. You're going to be sitting here at the end of the year with the same problems. We need to change the system. The system is the problem. Next slide, please. So where do we start as our team? So this was given to you a few months back. This is an assessment tool that your team can use to try to start seeing where there's problems. This is through Attendance Works again. They do have a more intense one. This is the practice one, actually. This is for people that don't have a team or new team. There is a more advanced one in there too. So we can all do this as a team and then come together and kind of share our answers and figure out where could we be doing better, okay? Where are our strengths right now? So this is a great tool to start getting a cohesive group in working together. Next slide, please. So this is also a tool that Allison put together for me. When you start with your team, what's your vision? What are your goals and objections? This is normal team stuff. Scopes and boundaries. So for some schools, they have tier 1 and tier 2 in one team and tier 3 in another. Okay, so that those teams are totally separate teams. And as a student moves through, they might move from one to the other. So we want to make sure tier 1 and tier 2, maybe they don't even work directly with the individual kids. They're just working on how that system works. So just know that you all are going to set up a different way to do this, and I'm going to be collecting this as we get later in the year. We're all experimenting on how this team works, and I want to know how your program works. Maybe you'll present like Amber does, because we are sharing. That's what our group is doing, is sharing with each other what's working, what's not working. But also when we get to the end of the year, we're going to be giving all this information to the state to pull together across the state, where we can start to see those systems that did work. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we want to make sure that we're using SMART goals. SMART goals might be more accurate now. I like that they've added the equity to those goals. So this is just another tool that Allison's put together. There's also little links at the bottom of these of the report that she's taken this also off of, if you want more information about where she got these. So this takes a village. It really does. So who are we going to outreach to partnerships with? Okay, that partnership might be with an outside organization. It might be with our teachers. We might be reaching out to counselors or other organizations that have a common goal. So we want to make sure that we're tracking, again, what's working, what's not, where we can take a look at that effectiveness later. So if you started in November, you document that someplace so we can look at your attendance from November on to see what difference it made when we added that next level of participation on. All right, next slide, please. All right, and this also is the second part of that one. Activities also is something that we're taking a look at. So maybe we're adding an attendance competition. Maybe the competition is between the different grades. Any professional development that we're going to give to our staff. Maybe we need someone to come in and talk about how it makes a difference when the whole staff is participating in that. Southside had an amazing person come in before their school talking about how they kind of do SEL for themselves to be better for others. I really loved her presentation. We want to make sure that because this is a data gathering, this is an experiment, we want to make sure that we have these things to track later. So just make sure that your team is documenting some of these things. So when you started, when you tried something, how that went, who's accountable on that team too. We talked about that when we started talking about team roles and stuff like that, is who's bringing the data, who's bringing the coordination piece with the staff, who's in charge of what roles is really important to make sure that nothing goes through the cracks there, that we make sure that we find those areas that need some support or help. Next slide, please. Okay, so this, I just got off the last webinar, the Gates webinar. I really like theirs. But how are we planning for success? All right. So if we're not managing our areas of success, what happens? So we need the vision, we need the skills, we need the incentives, we need the resources, and we need an action plan. And when we're missing one of those, we have false starts, we have frustration, we have resistance, we have anxiety, and we have confusion. Okay, so I just loved the visual of this slide, that if we don't have those pieces in place, and this year we're learning, we totally know we're learning, we're making it up. So we got to be generous with ourselves, but we want to make sure that we're getting to that place where we're consistent, where when this starts next year, we know how to roll this out. We've already been doing this for a while, and we're really good at it by this point. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so from looking at a lot of research and attendance data, we know there's certain areas that you're going to have a slump in attendance. I was looking at one of the school districts, and they know the day after Halloween is a huge day for kids not being there. So what did? They put one of their teacher service days on November 1st. I thought, that is a really smart school. So what can we look at, and what can we start to plan for? The next one up is after winter break. We know students coming back after winter break is one of those areas that we're going to start to see a slump, and we want to make sure we encourage them to come back. So I'm going to send you back off to those break rooms. You're going to have 8 minutes, and we're just going to brainstorm. What could we do in those small group as a school to encourage those kids to come back after winter break? We want them excited to be there after winter break. So share with each other, and please, someone share out when we get back, since this is a recording for our folks that couldn't come. They wanted to get some of these ideas too. So if one of your people could share out after we get back, unmute, I'd really appreciate that. All right, thanks so much. Welcome back, everyone. I hope recorded. Thank you. All right, so any awesome ideas that we generated in our breakout rooms for our winter coming back? Encourage those kids to come back after winter break.
Yes. Can I go first? Huh? I beat Elizabeth. So Jasmine shared a wonderful idea, raffling off items that week back as kids are walking through the door, a ticket or somehow that they get to be in just for being there and being welcomed, and possibly having an assembly that first day back, and then also doing a class competition, and then they would win some kind of class party, whoever has the highest percentage. In addition to those ideas, that week before we leave on break, pump up the kids by showing off the items that may be raffled and putting it on social media, and just letting them know, putting that information out there before they leave. So when they do return, they hopefully families and kiddos want to be back just to be able to participate in that. And then the regular welcome back robocall or email for families. That's what we came up with.
Those are great ideas. Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else?
I can go for our group. So some things that we were saying is, like you said, something brought up before they leave for break and to look forward to when they come back. Some ideas that we were thinking of, or that we thought of, was like maybe a spirit week, the week that they come back. The kids really like to do those. Also maybe communicate with families over the break, sending home Christmas cards or something, just saying, hey, we're really looking forward to see you back on this time. Yeah, those are a couple of the ones that we came up with.
Those sound great too. Oh, I love that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Harvey here from Wahilu. Yeah, April and I, we brainstormed a little bit. Everything similar to what I'm hearing right now, such as end of week raffle, where at the end of every single week, there's a raffle for who was here all week. Pull the raffle. There's a prize. Kids get really excited about that. At Wahilu, we do Monday and Friday circle, which is Native American song and dance in the gym, a gathering. And we do announcements and drumming and singing. And we need to add, we also, we celebrate birthdays. Who's had a birthday? Hey, there goes the drum, birthday. But we should add who's been in school all week last week. Coming out to the middle, let's get recognized with the honor song. Like that. Monthly assemblies, of course, is always great. And that's what our group started, we're beginning here at Wahilu. We did it before. Now we just got to start it back up again, the monthly assembly and recognitions. Also, pizza goes a long ways. Kids always love pizza, especially the older kids and the younger kids. Ice cream sundae, they really go for that too. They know they're going to get ice cream sundae or pizza when they come off a winter break. It'll encourage them to come here and enjoy.
I love it. Thank you, Harvey, for sharing. That's awesome. All right. Anybody else?
Hey, this is Roby. I mean, we don't really have a problem here at Southside with kids coming back in January, but I want to share. I shared something with our group that actually Cassandra G had she kind of brainstormed that we're doing here, and it's just a random drawing. Today you come get eyes just because you're here at school. And I've started doing that here, and I got to get better at actually remembering to do it. But I just calling out 3 or 4 kids' names. It's like, come to the office, get your prize today, just because you're here. If you're not here, you don't get the prize. So if the next day they come in and say, oh, your name was called, but you weren't at school, and we had talked in that, and if you have a kid that has chronic absences and they're here, and so like on their 3rd day in a row or 4th day in a row, you make sure their name gets called. That kind of thing to, it's a little less random, but, so that's
And you
something that
do
we're
that-
trying here, and that seems to be helping.
You do that over morning announcements, right, Roby?
I do that at morning announcement.
That's awesome. I love that. Awesome. Anybody else having some great ideas in their group? All
I really
right.
liked Mr. Whitford's. Hi, Mr. Whitford. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Vanessa Mills. I work at the Tola School now. I'm Grandma Maisel's granddaughter. But we have John Claymore here now, and we do the circle and group for every Friday or every Monday and Friday. But I really like that you bring out the kids for attendance, so I think that I'm going to bring that back to Mr. Claymore for our school. And then we do for our student of the month, we get a coupon, or the kids get a little coupon for the store, and they have a little bag ready for them. So I think that I'll bring that back to Mr. Claymore and do that for our kids for attendance. So I really like that idea. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, we celebrate birthdays at Circle. Now we're going to celebrate attendance. Who was here
Yes.
last week? Come on out and get recognized. Sing an honor song.
Yes, it's good to see you at Wahila still. I appreciate all your time there.
Hazel's granddaughter.
Yes. I'm Jimbo Mills's daughter, so Sid's niece. Yes. It's good to
That
see
is
you, Mr. Whitford.
That's so awesome. You guys, that's great. I mean, the generations coming back to become working at schools again is exciting. All right. Anybody else? I don't want to leave anybody out that had a great idea. All right. I love hearing that you reset after the week. So just because I missed a day this week, I could still compete next week and be there all week. I loved hearing that you've incentivized it where I can jump back in if I missed a day. All right. Next slide, please. Thank you all for your great ideas. Okay. So we have 2 groups that's both here on our meetings. One group is Priority District. Priority District has a grant, and they have monthly check-ins with OSPI. So that group already has a monthly check-in. The rest of you are called targeted districts. That means you have a Cassandra working at your building. So if you have a Cassandra at your building, you are a targeted district. We're going to have a check-in. We're going to have these check-ins actually every couple months. So this first round of check-in is November or December. I'm going to be outreaching to the district and the schools. And we're going to set up a meeting where we can review how my staff is doing for you. So they will be there, but just know we want to check in and see how this is going. We want to see, because you now have moved from picking students on their caseload from last year's attendance to now picking students that they're going to be supporting from this year's attendance. And that means that you're having a conference with that student and family saying, hey, here's Cassandra. We think she'd be a great support for your family. And they have to say yes or no. So we moved to that format several years ago. So we're going to be tracking the students that they got at the beginning of the year and the students that they're going to be getting in this format. So we're going to see how that's going for you. We need to maximize our Cassandra's caseloads. So for all you targeted districts, you get 20 students total for the Cassandra to work for your tier 3. And we're nowhere near that point yet. So we need to bump those up where we can get that data point for them. So if you would meet with myself and one of the Cassandras, we need to figure out how we can start to maximize their caseload. And then we're going to be talking about how your team is gathering that data so we can work one-on-one with your district on how you're collecting that student information, because the systems are slightly different. And hopefully we've documented what system you have already, but I may, when I send out the invitation, I might get that again, just to make sure that I know what the system is that you're working with on how to get that data. Does anyone have any questions about those meetings that we'll be setting up? All right, that's great. I'm glad about that. I just know that we're going to start doing those every couple months as well, just where you guys also get that time to talk to us about what we're doing well and what we still need to support you with. All right, so I've listed out on this. You're going to get this PowerPoint. I'm going to send it to everyone. These are the resources that are available to you because you're participating in this program. So we didn't record the first meeting, that regional training we had. I have the PowerPoint. There's a selection of slides that are helpful. If you didn't get to have that meeting, then definitely outreach to me and say, hey, which slides do I need to review on this? There's about a 20-minute presentation from Attendance Works that's set the stage for what we're doing with them. The ESSER Attendance Resource Padlet that are my districts that have the grant, they've already had access to this. I realize my poor targeted districts have not had access to this Padlet. Every resource, the recordings of Attendance Works, anything that we're pulling up from the state, we're throwing up on this Padlet. So please feel free to go in there and explore all the resources on that Padlet. Somebody else might have already addressed some of the issues you're looking for. And so please feel free to reach out and look through that. We are recording all these meetings, so you can find those recordings. October's is listed here, but this next one will go up there next. We have Attendance Works website full of information, sometimes not easy to find. Let me know if you can't find what you're looking for. Everyone Graduates was another consultation that we got at the beginning of the year, end of last year, for some of the people that were on this last year, and has a lot of great resources. The district attendance Padlet is the next one, and that one is available to anybody across the state. We've been starting this work for a couple of years now. If you have not done a community engagement board, Truancy is a team that you should be coordinating with, and community engagement boards are something under the law that we need to be doing. I've thrown up Thurston counties because I know that I haven't done one in every area. You can skip past the little beginning intro that talks about specific Thurston County and jump into the community engagement boards. If you need support and help in starting this is a huge tool for finding out why your families are not attending, by having a community meeting that looks at all the stopping blocks. You ask them, what's the barrier? And you have a team of people sitting there that's going to help remove that barrier. If you're not using this tool, we really need to, it's the law, by 7 unexcused absences, if your students have gotten there, they get a community engagement board, or you refer them to truancy. And all counties now are back open for these petitions. So we've been out of practice. We had COVID. So if you're needing to get back into this practice, there's a training there, and I'm happy to answer any questions about how to restart community engagement boards for your school. We also have a truancy at a glance. I found it really hard to go back and forth in the stuff that was listed on OSPI. So I just made a quick at a glance. What happens at day 1 unexcused absence? What happens at day 3? What happens at day 5? Excused absences for elementary students. Because it doesn't matter if it's unexcused or excused, we need to have a conference after day 5. So we just want everyone to start looking at that. Not only are we looking at attendance, we also have to look, which is different, at the truancy steps. and changing the systems from punishment to how can we help you? Okay, that's the most important part. When we say truancy, everyone thinks punishment. That is not what we want as a state. We want how can we help you? And that takes time and commitment to outreach to those families to find out what they need. All right, I'm going to stop my recording